Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Calm. And today we're talking about nonverbal communication. It's one of those subjects that it's probably not going to be on the test, but it's extremely interesting stuff and something that will serve you very well in life if you can master this type of thing. It's not something that's talked about very often in a communications course, but I will say that the words you use are only a very small percentage of communications that happen. So whether that's in person or in writing. So what are we talking about when we say nonverbal communication? Well, that's the obvious one is body language, but it's also tone of voice, which is something that gets lost in written communication. Good and bad habits. We're going to do a little interesting section on how to spot a liar, and we'll talk about cultural differences when it comes to nonverbal communication, because this stuff is not always something you're born with. It's something you learn. So again, it's basically communication without words. We're talking about your posture, how you sit. Are you slouching? Are you standing up straight? Your gestures. What are you doing with your hands? Are you covering your face? Are you just confident? Facial expression. Happy, sad, guilty, whatever. And it includes touch as well. How you touch somebody, where you touch yourself. It says a lot about you. Um, Dress and act, that type of nonverbal communication. Wearing a suit says something completely different than wearing sweatpants. How we act, where do we stand in the room? Are we sitting in a corner or are we in the middle of the dance floor? Very, very different communication. And even how we smell has a lot to do with nonverbal communication. So, question for you: can dogs smell fear? Well, I think we probably, if we've been around dogs, know that dogs have a sense of when someone comes by and they're fearful of the dog, right? The dog and what are they doing? Are they actually smelling fear? No, I mean smell probably doesn't have a fear, but they can sense this anxiety and fear. How do they do that? Well, they're not smelling you, but they're reading your nonverbal cues. Dogs have a very, very primarily emotional brain, and so they can see these little things that in our evolutionary past, this is how we communicated with gestures, with movements, right? With grunts too. Animal brains, including human brains, and again, humans are animals. We've evolved to pick up these wordless cues, right? We can sense this. We know intuitively when someone is sad or they're angry or they're lying to us sometimes. Think about how you feel when you are around someone who has really you feel anxious too. Think about when you're around someone who's stressed out, maybe your partner at home, maybe a family member, and they're stressed. Another question: can you sense danger? Do you ever get that feeling when you're maybe walking down the street and like something into, or maybe you can sense that someone is, or someone has a secret key, or someone's really, really happy at Starbucks. You know why? This being of happiness. This is all non-verbal. You can understand from some even when not using words. Our stuff. We can evolve to understand what's going on with someone's body language or with their smell or the way they touch us. There's definitely a lot more than words to communication. So let's talk about body language. Again, this is another way of communicating without words, and it's using your movements of your body. Yeah, it includes gestures of your hands. It includes the gestures of you moving to the side or moving quickly or slowly. It includes your posture, so how you sit or how you stand. Are you standing up straight? Are you facing your audience, or are you turned to the side? It includes your facial expressions, right? Happy, sad, interested, bored, angry. Eye contact. Are you looking someone in the eye, or are you averting your gaze? I think we talked in another class about how in certain cultures, looking someone in the eye is a sign of respect. It means you're paying attention, right? Go to the principal's office, look me in the eye when I talk to you. Or maybe it's someone from an indigenous background, and looking someone in the eye is a sign of challenge. And so the principal would say, "Don't look me in the eye when I talk to you." It's a very interesting story from one of my like grade 8 teachers. Told me that story when she was in the principal's office with another kid, and it was a northern Ontario community where there were a lot of different cultures. So Anyway, can you tell someone's anxious, confident, relaxed, scared, or so on? Of course you can. We all know this intuitively, that you can pick up language that is not done with words. So let's watch an interesting analysis from an FBI agent. I'll switch over to YouTube here. Hopefully you can see this. So this is a former FBI agent explaining how to read body language from Wired magazine, and we'll start halfway through the video. So he's gonna be doing the commentary over this video, but these people that you'll see will be acting in different ways and demonstrating this body language. Here we go.
Relax. The minute the head tilt goes away, there's usually some issue. I'm looking at the shoulders. You ask somebody a question and they don't know, both shoulders shoot up very quickly. And then I look at the hands. When something's troubling us, we tend to stiffen our fingers, interlace them, and almost like a teepee, we move our hands back and forth very slowly. This is to be differentiated from when we do the steeple, which we do in this position. When something's at issue, we tend to put our hands on our hips and we become very territorial. This is called arms akimbo. But look how it changes when we put our thumbs forward, and then it becomes one of more of I'm inquisitive. But I also look for any behaviors of ventilating, because men tend to ventilate at the neck, and we do at the very instant something bothers us. And then I look at the legs to see if there's any brushing of the legs with the hands, which is, again, to pacify. And then the feet. Do I see any behaviors such as wiggling of the feet, kicking of the feet? If I ask a question and all of a sudden the feet withdraw and are crossed, perhaps the person feels a little threatened by that question. So
you see what's happening here. This gentleman has studied body language probably over the course of his life as part of his profession, because he was an FBI investigator trained to understand, to interrogate people, and to know when they're telling the truth, when they're lying, when there's more to the question, when they need to push in a certain direction. So yeah, body language is a very valuable skill, and not just if you're an FBI agent, but if you are any human being interested in understanding other people. Posture. So we're talking about how you hold your body, right? It's how you stand, it's how you sit. Are you up or are you down? Are you slouched over? It says a lot about you. When I was a kid growing up, my parents used to say, "Hey, don't slouch at the dinner table," right? You weren't allowed to lean over your plate for whatever reason. I guess my parents were old school, but maybe you heard this as well at the dinner table. And same thing in my my 8 a.m. lectures. A lot of the students, they come and they got their coffee and they're ready to go. But as time goes on, it goes, you slouch down a little bit because you're tired, right? It's early, but no, it never happened because my lectures are always interesting. But posture says a lot about who you are and what's going on inside of you. It communicates a lot of information about whether you're confident or a submissive person. Are you feeling good today? Are you not feeling good today? And we can basically refer to postures in two ways. So there's the open posture. My shoulders are back, my chest is forward, I'm not turned to the side, I'm not crossing my arms. It suggests that you're open to the room, the crowd, the people around you. Whereas closed posture is the opposite. It's maybe you're hiding your face, that's closed posture, or you're covering you're interlacing your fingers, you're covering your body, turning to the side, crossing your legs. All that suggests closed posture. It suggests either you're uncomfortable, or it suggests that you're maybe hostile, you're angry. It can suggest that you're unfriendly. And it also suggests, hey, don't talk to me. So when you have an open posture, when you're in any situation, it's more likely that people will come to talk to you. And when you're closed, it's a signal, hey, I don't want to talk to you, right? This is applicable especially to interviews. Everyone wants to do well in an interview, right? But how you position your body, it says a lot about who you are. Are you nervous? Well, then maybe you're going to be crossing your legs or tapping your foot. Are you confident? Maybe you have your arm up on the back of the chair. Maybe that's a little bit too comfortable for an interview. But yeah, your posture says a lot about who you are and what's going on inside of you. And your boss or your future boss is less likely to hire you if you seem nervous and uncomfortable and out of your depth, versus whether your posture is, confident. People want to work with confident people. Gestures. we're mainly talking about the movements that we make, and especially with the hands, right? You know, there's this meme about, or this stereotype of Italians. They like to talk with their hands, and they're very they gesticulate. Is that what that's called? To move a lot with your hands. But it's not just your hands; it's your body as well. That's a gesture to move your head to the side and say nodding yes, nodding no. Those are gestures as well. Anything like a okay sign, thumbs up, the middle finger, stop, talk to the hand, all that stuff. Those are gestures. Tilting your head a little bit, and you know you're not sure, or maybe you're signaling that you're interested. You know, oh, I'm interested. These are not universal across cultures or across places in the world, right? The gestures are learned. So a okay sign in Canada, we know what you mean. Everything's okay. But this in Brazil or Germany or other places in the world means something very rude. So you don't want to do that in front of that type of audience, right? These are not gestures we're not born with, right? We're taught them after birth. However, facial expressions, these are universal. I have a very young daughter who, you know, from day one was smiling, was sad, was crying, different faces that tell you what's going on inside her brain, right? We are born with a lot of facial gestures, not all of them. There's some that we learn as we age, they get more nuanced. But look at the photo here. You can tell she's shocked, she's interested, she's doubtful, she's disgusted, she's ashamed. You know, you can tell what's going on in her brain based on her facial expression. Nothing else has changed. Her shoulders and her body's in the same position. She's just changing her facial expression. And it tells you a lot about what's going on in someone's head or heart. By the way, none of us are very good, unless you play poker and you have a poker face where you're consciously controlling your facial expressions. A lot of us, they say we wear our heart on our sleeve. People know what we're thinking or feeling based on our facial expressions. A lot of the times it's basically automatic, and so you're communicating a lot to a person through your facial expressions. If you can learn to control your expressions, you're able to control your communication a little bit better as well. Touch. This is a fraught subject. It's really not appropriate to touch people generally unless it's wanted. But touch plays a big part in communication and in relationships. And especially in the handshake in the West. Now in COVID times, trying to give someone a handshake, they're going to think you're crazy, right? Or they're going to think maybe you are conspiracy theorists, don't believe in the pandemic, or that you're you're a risk taker. It's just an innocuous handshake, right? For thousands of years, it's been a way to show someone that you're not holding a weapon, and show someone that. Test someone's strength, basically, right? You all know the guy that just like squeezes your hand in the death grip, right? Don't do that. That's not it's not good on any level. But we also know the person that's got the limp handshake, right? You grab them and they feel like a dead fish, and then you just shake their arm like that. No, there's a way to give a good handshake that communicates, hey, I'm confident, but I'm not the egomaniac death grip trying to dominate you. You hold your hand, straight up and down. You don't twist it over the other person's hand to try to dominate them, and you don't go under to try to be submissive. It's straight up and down. You look someone in the eye. It's the webs of your thumbs connect, not like at the end of your fingertips. A handshake communicates your confidence. It communicates your warmness, your openness. And I'm talking about in the West. In parts of Asia, it's more common perhaps to give a bow. In certain parts of Africa, you put both hands up to show that you're not holding a weapon, right? That's the greeting instead of a handshake. And it's very common to use this in business too. Business, any jobs you'll go to, anytime you go to a business interview, it's a good thing to learn how to give a solid handshake because it says a lot about you. It may seem silly, but it's something that employers are going to look at you, whether it's fair or not, and say, "Oh, this person has a good handshake." They're not a weak-willed person. So anyway, there's that tone of voice. We're talking here about words because you're not communicating grunts and clicks, right? But we're not really interested in the words themselves. We're interested in the tone in which they're delivered. So you've probably been to the principal's office at some point in your life, and maybe the principal or your mother said, "Don't take that tone with me," right? It's interesting. We all know what tone of voice means, right? Um, Consider this statement: "You did a great job." Right? Innocuous statement. It's nice actually to hear that, right? But consider putting a different tone on it. Sarcastic would be, "You did a great job." Right? Condescending, "You did a great job." Compassionate, "You did a great job." Reluctant, maybe you don't want to admit that someone did a great job. "You did a great job." Right? I'm saying the same words, but I'm changing the tone entirely and having a little fun with it as an actor. I'm practicing my acting. Um, this tone of voice gets lost in written communication. It's you can communicate a little bit of it, but it's much harder when you can't control the what do you call it, the rhythm, the timbre of your voice. There's so much content in tone of voice that's lost, especially in a text message that's very short, right? How many times have you received a text message from a friend and you're like, "What's wrong with that person?" Right? And they're probably fine. They probably just sent you a text in a very different way than you received it, right? Different meaning. So that's tone of voice. And this is, again, it's a nonverbal type of communication. Yes, you're using your voice, but there's no words involved, right? Or the words are the secondary part of it. Dress. We're not talking about actual dresses. We're talking about the way you dress, right? It's not irrelevant. A lot of people think, well, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna wear sweatpants out to breakfast. It doesn't matter what shoes I wear. They're 10 years old. They're falling apart. Doesn't matter. But you probably wouldn't do that to a job interview, right? You're going to dress up a little bit, depending on the job. If you're working outdoors in landscaping, you won't dress in a suit, I hope. But your dress says a lot about you. Whether it's fair or not, this is the reality. So if you go to a job interview and you're wearing a suit and you've got your nice cufflinks and a nice tie, or you're wearing a nice business casual dress or something like that, they're going to say, "Oh, this person's put together." It communicates a lot. Certain situations have certain dress codes, right? You can wear whatever you want at home, totally, absolutely. But if you're going to go to a funeral, you're not going to wear your worst clothes. If you go to a wedding, you're not going to wear your worst clothes. You have a dress code depending on the situation, right? And if you break that dress code, now you're communicating something usually negative. Either, hey, you're overdressed, you're too good for this crowd, or you're underdressed, you don't respect the whatever event is happening, right? Would you go to class in your pajamas? Probably not. Can you go to work in jeans? Some places you can. Some places is totally normal, but others, when I worked in government, you shouldn't. It was frowned upon, right? Except on Fridays. Weird cultural tradition we have here in the Western world, casual Fridays. Would you go on a date with like a shirt that's worn out, holes in it, coffee stains, whatever? Probably not, right? Because what you wear communicates a lot about you. If you're going on a date, you're probably going to wear something that makes you look good, and or wealthy, or stylish, or interesting, right? What you wear is important. I think I've made my point. Space, our personal space around us, that communicates a lot as well. Think about if a stranger on the bus came and stood, and this is extremely relevant in COVID times. A stranger on the bus came and stood like right next to you, like right here, put their head on your shoulder. Wouldn't that be weird, right? Whereas if your partner did that, probably not so weird, right? Your personal space, it depends on where you live, how close people can get. Where we stand and sit speaks volumes about who we are, if we're comfortable. Back when we were going to class, do you sit in the front of the class or the back of the class? I hate to say it, but usually the students sitting in the front of the class, they're more engaged, they're getting higher marks. Whereas the ones that are sitting in the very back row basically don't want to be there. I'm generalizing, it's not always true, but basically they're not going to get as good marks because they're less engaged, right? That's just the reality that we notice. If someone's walking down the hallway toward you, do you get out of the way, or do you expect them to get out of the way? That space dynamic says a lot about how you feel about yourself, what your position is. If your boss is in line with you at the cafeteria, maybe you let your boss go first, right? I don't know. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're trying to send a message to your boss. If you're at the bar, are you standing in the middle of the dance floor having a great time, or are you standing in the corner in the shadows, just kind of watching, right? The way you use space communicates a lot to the people around you. And again, back to personal space, these norms differ across cultures. So in certain countries, it's very comfortable to stand within 1 foot of a person. Whereas in Canada, you're like, no. If you're within like my arm span, then you're like creepy. What's going on here? Why are you so close to me? Smell. Yeah, this is a less often talked about, less relevant aspect of communication, but smell matters, right? Smell communicates a lot about you. Now, there's this theory about pheromones, and it's said that they are chemicals that trigger response in the same species. So, this is especially talked about in dating situations, right? Men have pheromones that's coming off their body, and it's women are getting this, and they're feeling something related to like a biological reaction, right? Or in same-sex couples as well, I believe the theory goes. It does seem to work in some animals. So it can be a way to raise an alarm, it can be a way to encourage sexual attraction. But the research is kind of flimsy on this. Whether pheromones exist or not is under debate as far as I understand. I don't know if there's new research, but anyway, something to think about that, there's a smell that's being communicated to other people, right? And we know for sure, like your hygiene, if you have bad body odor, that's communicating something to you as well, to other people as well. And we don't always notice our own smells. So yeah, I mean, I don't need to tell you to take a shower every day. You probably do anyway. Now, what does it say when someone puts on a cologne or a perfume to meet with you, right? Now you're thinking, oh, maybe this person likes me, right? Why are they? Maybe they wear perfume every day. Maybe they don't, right? I had a coworker that wore very powerful perfume every single day in the office. I don't think she was trying to go after any of the people in that office. I think it was just her natural hygiene routine, right, in the morning. But it might mean something if you're meeting someone for a date. They take a little extra care with themselves, right? And why is smell important in the context of communication? Because smell is processed in the limbic system of our brain. It's that it's a part of the brain that developed before our logic and rationality, and after the reptile brain that controls our heart and our breathing, right? It's the part of the brain that controls emotion. So they're tied together. That's why when you go to you're outside of a McDonald's or something, or a pizza place, and they're pumping the smell out, and you smell, oh, fresh fries. I'm so hungry, right? Hunger is an emotion. That's because your smell system is tied to your emotional system, right? Your emotional responses. So yeah, it says a lot. I smell a certain perfume, and I remember a woman I dated 20 years ago. It's amazing. All right, now let's talk about bad habits in the world of nonverbal communication. A bad habit is touching your face, right? Itching your beard, picking your nose, biting your teeth, right? Bad habit. That suggests what's wrong with this person. They're nervous, or what's going on here? They're uncomfortable, they have anxiety. Crossing your arms or your legs over each other, not the greatest message you're sending if you're in a group setting. Slouching over, leaning on the wall, like, if someone's in class like this, I'm like, obviously they need to be somewhere else but this class. They need to go home, right? Yawning. Listen, yawning is actually just a way to bring more oxygen into your blood and to cool down your brain. But it's interpreted by people as, what I'm hearing is boring me, right? No, it's not. It's just that your brain's been processing a lot of information, and you need to bring more oxygen. Looking bored, playing with your phone or looking at your watch. That is for me anyway, the ultimate insult. It basically says, I don't care. I don't care. If you have your phone out at dinner, that for me, that's a problem. And maybe this is a generational thing, but I don't believe you can multi-focus. You can multitask. You can certainly listen to the radio and bake a cake, but you can't focus on either of those things. You have to do one or the other, right? So yeah, if you're focused on your phone or your watch, it's just saying you're not paying attention to the person speaking, right? Yeah. Anyway, crowding somebody, like getting really up in their space, or like unnecessarily touching them wherever it may be. Even if it's like on the shoulder, that's innocuous. It's still uncomfortable. It's a bad habit. And again, depending on the culture, we talked about the weak handshake or the death grip. And then another bad habit is demonstrating lower value, right? What does that mean? It means you're kind of showing someone that you're beneath them in the social hierarchy. Maybe this is again the walking down a tight hallway and you meet someone and you get up against the wall and let them pass first. Now that could be a courtesy thing, but it could be that you feel like you're less than. Does this make sense? A demonstration of lower value would be I don't know, something like eating out of garbage, or picking up food off the floor, or just signaling to someone that you're not a valuable, you don't value your own self, right? So don't do any of that stuff. This guy in the picture here, he, based on what we can see here, he probably has low self-worth, right? Yeah, he's wearing a suit. He's got a watch on. We don't know if it's nice or not, but he's clearly a little bit uncomfortable. His hair is not really that organized. He's looking down. He's slouching. He looks very uncomfortable. His tie's undone. Yeah, we can tell that there's something wrong with this guy, right? Inside of him. Good habits, on the other hand, nodding. Yeah, you're following along. You're telling someone, yes, I understand you. Tilting your head. That's a sign of interest, right? Curiosity. Eye contact. If you look someone in the eyes, you're signaling that you're interested, that you're focused on them. Leaning in a little bit. Salespeople know that if you're sitting at the kitchen table trying to sell someone new doors or windows, and the client leans in like this, they're interested. That's the sign of interest. Smiling when appropriate, obviously not at a funeral, but whenever it's appropriate. Sitting up straight or standing up straight, that suggests you're someone who's attentive and aware and enthusiastic. Mirroring body language. This one's interesting. If you're sitting across from someone, and it could be, they've done experiments with people sitting right across the room, strangers, and that person picks up their drink, right? Takes a sip. You do the same like 10 seconds later, and you continue to mirror the body language. So they put their head on the back of their neck, you put your hand on the back of your neck. They cross their arms, you cross their arms. Uncross, uncross, right? You mirror someone's body language, not so quickly that they're going to notice what you're doing, but you do it slowly, like 10 seconds after they're doing it, right? What that will do is it will create a very good rapport with somebody. It's a very weird phenomenon, but it works. There's an interesting book about this. Richard Feynman wrote about his experiment with this, and he was in a bar and he was just doing this with a stranger across the bar. And eventually the woman came over and talked to him and was like, I feel like I know you. I feel like we're very close or something like that. And it was only because he was mirroring her body language. Very, very strange. Opening your body. We talked about open body language. That's, not hiding yourself behind a podium. It's not twisting your body so you're kind of, like hiding yourself. We all know what that means, right? Using your hands, it's actually a positive thing. You look at politicians, they're using their hands to gesture for emphasis, right? They're adding something to the conversation. It can be done very badly, can be done very well. And then own your space. There's something funny about, I notice this with younger people. They haven't grown into their bodies yet, maybe, and they try to squeeze into small places, like to get around somebody. I'm like, that's kind of a sign like you're a little unconfident. Own your space. Walk into the room, take up some space. Don't try to squeeze into the littlest seat in the lecture hall and hands up. Hi. Can I have a question? I have a question. No, own your space. Like, be confident with yourself and own the space that you're entitled to have, right? Let's look at an interesting video. This woman, she's a researcher at, I forget which university, but she's studying basically posture and studying, she's the one that's always quoted about power poses, right? That you can stand in a certain way, like Wonder Woman here, stand in a certain way and feel more confident. And basically it's true. The research is pretty good, I would say, that you can, let's say before you're going to a job interview, do some power poses in the bathroom and feel a lot more confident because your body influences your mind as well, right? So let's take a look at that video. Where is it? Here we go. Her name is Amy Cuddy. Yeah, she's great. Okay, so I'm halfway into the video here. She's going to show you a few examples of open body language and closed body language. Let's do it.
I became especially interested in nonverbal expressions of power and dominance. And what are nonverbal expressions of power and dominance? Well, this is what they are. So in the animal kingdom, they are about expanding. So you make yourself big, you stretch out, you take up space, you're basically opening up. It's about opening up. And this is true across the animal kingdom. It's not just limited to primates, and humans do the same thing. So they do this both when they have power sort of chronically, and also when they're feeling powerful in the moment. And this one is especially interesting because it really shows us how universal and old these expressions of power are. This expression, which is known as pride, Jessica Tracy has studied, she shows that people who are born with sight and people who are congenitally blind do this when they win at a physical competition. So when they cross the finish line and they've won, it doesn't matter if they've never seen anyone do it, they do this. So the arm's up in the V, the chin is slightly lifted. What do we do when we feel powerless? We do exactly the opposite. We close up, we wrap ourselves up, we make ourselves small. We don't want to bump into the person next to us. So again, both animals and humans do the same thing. And this is what happens when you put together high and low power. So what we tend to do when it comes to power is that we complement the other's nonverbals.
Do you notice the difference there? I don't know who these people are, and it kind of looks like maybe they're at the UN, but the woman is obviously the more powerful person in this interaction, right? You can see she's got her arms on her hips. She's kind of leaning into his space, kind of showing dominance. She's got her head forward. She's looking directly at him, whereas he's got his hands down and they're interlaced, and he's kind of leaning back a little bit, and he's not. I don't think he's looking directly at her, but you can tell the power dynamic here. And it's she's in the power seat.
To do when it comes to power is that we complement the other's nonverbals. So if someone's being really powerful with us, we tend to make ourselves smaller. We don't mirror them, we do the opposite of them. So I'm watching this behavior in the classroom, and what do I notice? I notice that MBA students really exhibit the full range of power nonverbals. So you have people who are like caricatures of alphas, like really coming into the room. They get right into the middle of the room before class even starts, like they really want to occupy space. When they sit down, they're sort of spread out. They raise their hands like this. You have other people who are virtually collapsing when they come in. As soon as they come in, you see it. You see it on their faces and their bodies, and they sit in their chair and they make themselves tiny, and they go like this when they raise their hand. I noticed a couple things about this. One, you're not going to be surprised. It seems to be related to gender. So women are much more likely to do this kind of thing than men. Women feel chronically less powerful than men, so this is not surprising. But the other thing I noticed is that it also seemed to be related to the extent to which the students were participating and how well they were participating. And this is really important in the MBA classroom because participation counts for half the grade. So business schools have been struggling with this gender grade gap. You get these equally qualified women and men coming in, and then you get these differences in grades, and it seems to be partly attributable to participation. So I started to wonder, okay, so you have these people coming in like this, and they're participating. Is it possible that we could get people to fake it, and would it lead them to participate more? So my main collaborator, Dana Carney.
Okay, I don't think we need to watch anymore, but you get the point, right? Body language is powerful. Body language is going to influence your experience in school. You're not in an MBA program, but it's going to apply no matter which class you're in. Let me get out of here for a second. You're not born and relegated to a certain side of the equation, right? You're not born exhibiting these power poses. You're not born exhibiting the meek behavior, right? You can choose how you want to act. It's entirely up to you how you want to develop. And you probably have noticed this in your own life, that when you were younger, you were more demure, you were less likely to speak up, you were less likely to insert yourself into a conversation. But as you grow, you grow your confidence, presumably, and many of you maybe you're still working on that. But it can be learned. This is learned behavior, that you can adopt all these good habits and become a more confident person. is it valuable? Do you need to do this, or is it okay to be one way or another? It doesn't matter. Like, it's your choice. There's nothing wrong with being someone who's mild-mannered and quiet. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want a better chance at getting the job, at friendships, relationships, you probably want to develop some of these good habits and become more of an open person, right? All right, moving on to how to spot a liar. This is interesting. Many people can tell you that you can use body language to spot a liar. So maybe, someone touches their face and they're lying when they're speaking, or blinking is, a sign of lying. Not that you can stop blinking. Looking away when they talk to you, a nervous laugh. Studies actually confirm this is false. That you're not able to tell that someone is lying based on any kind of gestures they make or facial expressions. But you can catch a liar by using certain open-ended questions, surprising them with a question or a scenario, or watching for changes in their confidence. If they suddenly become much less confident, maybe they're lying to you, right? And there's a lot more you can read about this with the link here, but it's again related to nonverbal communication and body language. All right, last slide here. We talked about how it's more, depending on where you live, it's more or less okay to be inside someone's personal space, right? So as I said, some expressions are universal, like a smile. We know what that means in any language. You don't need to speak the same language. But then, thumbs up in Iran is the middle finger for us, right? A backwards peace sign in the UK, that means, up yours. Pointing in Malaysia, very rude, very, very rude. In Thailand, it's feet. If you point your feet at someone or put them on them, put your feet on somebody, very, very rude, because the feet are the lowest part of the body, right? The okay sign in Brazil, even in certain countries, come here, right? That's how you call a dog in their culture. So instead you call people like this, come here, come here, come here. Or, in a lot of the world, using your left hand to do anything, to eat, to touch someone, because that's the hand that you wipe your bum with, right? So you got to think about cultural differences when you talk about this and this nonverbal communication. Look at this graph or this chart on the right here. What's comfortable in Romania? Well, for a stranger, it's 4.5 feet away to stand that far away from them. Although if you're very close to someone, 1.5 feet. So it's very, very close. In Saudi Arabia, it's pretty much balanced, right? You're going to be about 3.5 to 4 feet away from someone, no matter if they're a stranger or they're close. Whereas in Norway, you're and a lot of the Nordic countries, I believe, are like this. You're a close friend, you can stand like basically touching the other person within 1.2 feet of them, right? Whereas in the United States, it's probably similar to Canada, right? So there you go, differences in cultural norms. So that's the nonverbal communication. If you have any questions, just email me. But maybe, better yet, start practicing this stuff. Start experimenting with body language. Maybe you want to, start sitting up straight instead of slouching over, because that communicates a lot about you. And I know, like when I was young, pretending I didn't care, just like, feet up on the table, slouching, that was a sign that I was a cool guy. But, hate to tell you, but when you get into the real world, into the work world, that does not communicate anything good about you. So think about your posture, your body language, your nonverbals, your facial expressions, your gestures. All that stuff is going to either help you or hinder you in your work life. Okay, I think that's it for the slides. Check FOL for any other stuff, and thanks a lot. We'll talk soon.